Good morning, and welcome to Drive. My name is Walt Dreyfus, and I am here to introduce our keynote speaker, Connie Kravas. Now, unfortunately, to paraphrase a character named Galadriel in a movie some of you may have seen, this introduction is on the edge of a knife. Stray but a little, and your career is in the tank. This is my boss I'm introducing. This is a very risky proposition. So I'm going to delay and procrastinate for a moment and do some housekeeping. You shall all have conference notebooks. There will be a full-color version available online after the conference concludes. There are a few room changes for sessions that are different from what was on the website, but they are accurate in the book. Lunch will be in the International Promenade. Wi-Fi access is open. Please set cell phones to stun. And stick around for the reception tonight immediately following Dr. Medina's remark. You'll find a couple of tickets behind your name tag that will come in handy at that reception. I also want to shout out to the Drive Evangelical team. I think you at least have all heard the name of Chris Sorensen. Chris Sorensen is on point, and he is the guy whose imagination invented this whole deal, ably aided by Machiko Gaston, Bob Edmiston, and Vijay Arora. If you see any of those four people around, please thank them if you think it's worthwhile to be here. In addition, we are actively recruiting, so anybody who wants to come and work for the University of Washington needs to think about talking to myself or two other people who will be in attendance, Amy Manio and Michelle O'Connor. They are our recruiters, and they will be on site. So if you want to talk to me personally, my email address is tamecat, that's tamecat, T-A-M-E-C-A-T, that's the opposite of wildcat, at uw.edu. And I will be pleased to do informational interviews with every single one of you. It is such a pleasure to be here in such a group of my colleagues and friends who do data. Usually I'm in the basement, sort of morose like Eeyore in my cubicle environment, and like many of you, I don't have that many people to talk to, although I probably have more than most of you. So it's a real pleasure to have so many of you who can speak the same language as I do. So, on to my introduction of Dr. Connie Kravas. Actually, she wrote a nice bio of herself, and it's in the book, so you should read that because what I'm going to say has nothing to do with her actual qualifications for the job. But before I get to that, I need to procrastinate a little bit more. I have a poem for you about data. And this poem is called The Three Goals by David Budbill. Now see, you may say, gee, I'm coming to a data conference and the first thing I'm hearing is a poem. Well, like many of you, I'm highly qualified for my job in information technology. My undergraduate degree is in rhetoric. And so what I actually learned was oral interpretation of literature. I didn't learn anything about data. So that's why I have a poem for you. The Three Goals by David Budbill. The first goal is to see the thing itself, in and for itself, to see it simply and clearly for what it is. No symbolism, please. The second goal is to see each individual thing as unified, as one, with all the other 10,000 things. In this regard, a little wine helps a lot. The third goal is to grasp the first and second goals to see the universal and the particular simultaneously. Regarding this one, call me when you get it. Thank you. Now, on to my introduction of Dr. Connie Kravas, my boss. Connie and I first met in 1990, and I have been subordinated to her ever since. She was actually a colleague, not my supervisor, when we started out, but she has actually advanced in her career while mine has stagnated for the last 23 years. Nonetheless, I think that the most important thing in finding an outstanding job is finding an outstanding boss. It's a lot easier to do a really tough, hard, or dull job when you have a great boss than to have a great job and a boss who drives you absolutely crazy. And I'm blessed with a boss who I can drive crazier than she can drive me. So pick a good boss. Again, we have some good bosses at the University of Washington, so if you're thinking about it. The second thing that makes for a great working environment, and I'm still not even getting to what the job actually is because I don't think that that's that important, is having great colleagues. It's easier to have to do a job when you have great colleagues and great clients and people you can have good, strong relationships with, even if your tool set is not very good, you have all kinds of challenges, you're under-resourced. If you have that great boss and those great colleagues and strong relationships, it makes for a better working environment. And finally, I think a good purpose. And one of the things that most of us in this room share is that we work for the greater good in one way or another. And I think that's very important, and it's another key to job satisfaction. I haven't said anything about the content of our jobs. I haven't said anything about our compensation. I think these three things are the most important. I have a wonderful boss. Her name is Connie Kravas. You can read about her in the notebook, but here she is. See for yourself.
Good morning. Confession for you. It was 6, maybe 7 months ago when Chris and Machiko first asked me if I would be an opening speaker for the Drive conference. In fact, before they talked to me, they checked it out with Diane to find out that I had an opening on my calendar. I accepted and, put it kind of in the back of my head. And about 3 weeks ago, I was starting to think, oh my goodness, I'm coming to a conference to talk with people who are geniuses in technology and data and reporting and whoa. And Chris and Machiko, if you have not gotten to know them, and I know you will during this conference, they have incredible intuitive skills. So last week they showed up in my office and they just blurted out, listen, we want to relieve any anxiety you might have about this. This conference is chock-a-block with speakers of tremendous expertise, brilliant colleagues who are doing some of the most incredible work that supports all of the kinds of needs we have in advancement and other needs of our organizations. They're coming from all over the country. They are truly dazzling. And so, honestly, what we're looking for as you open the conference, as conference is open, we're really hoping to have someone who doesn't have much to say at all. And you come highly recommended. Well, the truth is, I had to accept this invitation. I had to, because it's a unique opportunity for me to tell you what I believe in my heart, and that is that the work you do inside the institutions, as consultants to our institutions, as organizations who are doing phenomenal work that ultimately supports us, helps us we could not be effective in advancing our institutions, and particularly in higher education. We couldn't possibly provide the kind of extraordinary educational experiences for our students. We couldn't be advancing and solving the most difficult, intransigent problems facing the people on our globe without the incredibly important work you do. So I want to talk to you about things that I think we all have in common that transcend IT, that transcend data and reporting. What I want to do is take a little risk here this morning. Walt has already said we have some positions open. I almost was thinking, being fearful of his introduction, I would be telling you that his job might be one of those that's open. But I'd like, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to do a little role playing with you. It won't take any, you don't have to be scared about that when you're sitting there. I'm not going to ask you to come up front and do instantaneous dialogue. But I want to role play in this sense. I would like to put you in the context and have you think along with me that this is one of your first 2 or 3 weeks at the University of Washington in advancement or in fields that relate to advancement. Because these are the things I would want to tell you if you were at the UW, and I hope they relate to you wherever your place of employment and places of future employment might be. First thing I would do is say, congratulations. You are joining an extraordinary institution that is making a difference in this world. And congratulations for being offered the opportunity to accept a job with us here at the University of Washington, because we are very, very picky. We know a lot about you. We were watching for things. We had over 100 applicants for the position you applied for. But this is what we saw in you. There are 3 things minimally that you're bringing to us beyond the technical expertise that we know you have. And these attributes, these values, weren't identified by me first and foremost. They were identified by a brilliant president at the University of Washington by the name of Charles Odegaard way back in the 1960s and 70s. But to this day, they define our DNA at the UW, and we live and breathe them as values in university advancement. So that's what I want to share with you in this new orientation, your first orientation moment at the UW. The first thing is we are looking for people who are smart. And by that, we don't mean just high IQ. Yes, there are a lot of geniuses, a lot of them at the UW. And so we have to be fairly intelligent, but that's not what Charles Odegaard or what we mean by smart at all. It's being innovators. It's being thinkers and learners who are excited about new opportunities, new concepts. It's about people who aren't satisfied that even solving a problem is enough. They're problem seekers, so they can really, truly make the greatest contributions. That's the kind of intelligence that we're excited that we know you exist and that you have and that you're bringing to the UW. The second thing is we hired you because we know you're hardworking. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want you to have work, home, life balance. We do. What it does mean is that we work in teams, and you know what it's like if you're in that boat and just one person doesn't keep the oar in the right direction, slows it up. Everything gets held back, and it's frankly not much fun when you're trying to work together to complete a project and 1 or 2 people aren't pulling their oars. Everybody gets a little bit tense in that kind of environment. So we know that you're hardworking. We have checked with your former employers, your friends. They tell us you're hardworking, and we value that. Last spring, I happened to sit down at a awards banquet for faculty and staff and students who are being recognized by the institution. And the individual I sat next with, a teaching award winner, shared 2 little family anecdotes with me. He said he learned from his papa that the only time success comes before work is in the alphabet. Kind of cute. Well, the third thing we know you bring to us is that you're a caring person. You care about yourself. You have pride in the work you do. You know that when you take risks, we've got your backs. We want you to take those risks, but we also know that there are going to be some failures. There are going to be some slip-ups, whether it's relationship miscues, whether it's documentation. That's okay. Remember, be caring for yourself and know that it's your batting average that matters. Say sorry to yourself and forgive yourself. Be caring of yourself so that you can also be caring of others. Caring when you step back from it, really it's so basic, isn't it? It's the old golden rule. Trusting others by being trustworthy. Having an abundance mentality that your success isn't a chip off my success. Knowing that we can do so much more together and frankly have a lot more fun if we have that kind of respect and trust for one another, if we truly, authentically, genuinely, in almost a vulnerable way, risk to care about one another. So those are things, you may not have known it, but we were listening for those things when you were an applicant for the position that you were hired for. And why they're important to us is pretty easy to think about when you put them into, or think about them in a gestalt. We can teach you advancement. We can teach you a lot about IT. We can teach you a lot about the to-dos, but we can't teach you being smart. We can't teach you being hardworking. We can't teach you to be caring. So thank you, sincerely thank you for bringing that to us. It matters, we value that, and we value having you as a part of this team. So you're bringing those three things to us. We have at least three things we pledge to you. You deserve these things because we want your role, your current experience at the UW to be the beginning of a phenomenally joyous career with many other opportunities along the way. And how is it we're able to do that, to make that pledge to you? Well, it's kind of simple, really. We've studied what it is that people expect. And Walt already hinted at these. What workers everywhere need in their places of employment, whether they're consultants or whether they're full-time employees, part-time employees, whether they're working in the factory or working at a university, working in other not-for-profits, whether they make $1 million or more a year, whether they make minimum wage. No matter what, people need these three things, and if these things are missing, one or collectively, work is not as meaningful. It is not as joyous. And you know what? We spend a whole lot of our lives working. So these things matter. The first thing we know is that people long to work for something they can believe in. And aren't we blessed in this room to be able to work for organizations that truly are changing lives for the better? Here, locally, the students we have, really throughout the globe, through the kinds of problems that we're taking on, the solutions every single day that are being provided by charities, not-for-profits, our universities here and beyond. I can tell you that I count my lucky stars to work at the University of Washington. I do, every single day. It is not a drudge to come to work. Secondly, people not only want to work for something they can believe in, they want to know that the job they have within that organization matters, that they contribute to something bigger than themselves. And I can tell each and every one of you, this large new employment base, we would not have hired you if we didn't need that position. We're very efficient in our use of resources. We have to be. We agonize when we decide to create a new position, not because we don't want it, but we know we can only do so many things with the resources we've got. So you have been hired because we believe in you. We know you're going to bring those three attributes to us. We know that you're going to be experiencing an amazing institution. We also want you to know from this day forward, the work, the position you're hired in matters. Finally, people want to know that the work they do is respected, even recognized by others. Now, I can set the tone for that by the various awards we give out, by the little notes I can send out, by trying to get to know the people in our organization. But that's just that thin. To have a deep, rich culture in which people feel respected and recognized requires all of you. When someone does well today, someone has helped you today, tell them as authentically, as genuinely as you can, thank you. That really helped. That will mean more than all of the things they will hear in group settings. That one-on-one, that moment-by-moment way of acknowledge one another. So I deputize you today to be the leaders that you want to be now and forever. So those are the things that we promise to you. Now I want to take us back out of this role-playing for just a minute, and I'll come back to it at the end. Let's talk a little bit about the DRIVE conference. The reason I hope that those values that I just shared with you have something to do with this conference as well. DRIVE is a microcosm of the workplace. You bring, I know, people out here, you are smart, you are hardworking, and you are caring. I'm not just saying that because it sounds clever to tie it to the beginning of the speech. You have those things. You wouldn't have even signed up to come to this particular conference. So, being smart, what does that mean here? Well, it's a different thing to everybody. But I hope you will challenge yourself to listen for intent and to get something out of everything, every single session you attend. There will be kernels of insight that are just spot on, or there will be other ideas that may not be particularly pertinent to you in your current role. You may find them very useful later on, but you know of others within your environment, your work environments for which those insights will be particularly helpful. So try, be an active learner as you experience the next 2 days. Certainly in terms of being hardworking, you need to expect from all the speakers, excepting me, that they're giving it their best. They are really prepared. Expect a lot of them because they are expecting a lot of you as well. And I want you to expect a lot of yourself. That this isn't just a day or two out of the office. This is a day or two of real soul searching and even maybe career finding. I will tell you it is this true story. It was 40 years ago. I attended a conference in Dallas, Texas. I was an associate professor at the time, just minted associate professor, but it was a big deal to me, I thought, at the time. But I was also doing research, because you need to do that as a professor. And so I went to this conference on what I thought was R&D, how I could take the research I was doing out of the laboratory and develop a product. Ooh, can you hear me better when I lean down? I went, and it was about fundraising. And I swear to you, I was a born-again fundraiser by the time I left that conference. I had no idea that public schools were doing that. And I had no idea it would be a whole career, but I knew I was checking in or checking out of the faculty role. I was going to go for gumption because I liked what I was hearing, and I thought it was something that I could worthwhilely commit my time to, my lifetime to, in my professional work. And I've loved it every day since. And you can be caring here. That's a little harder sometimes to describe, but I'll tell you, I had the privilege to be at a dinner with a lot of the speakers last night, and especially the people who have put this conference together. They have put so much care into the preparation of this conference. It's daunting. Indeed, I swear to you, Chris, Machiko, and the whole team, their goal, they have gumption. They want this to be the best conference you have ever attended. Well, you are the only ones that can really assure that, because you've got to not only listen and absorb, but really articulate with one another what you're sensing that may be valuable, what things are just not ringing true. All of that's good. But your active engagement is the way you can care the most. And you can also care the most by meeting a lot of people. I can almost guarantee that you're going to meet at least one more person who is going to be a huge resource to you in the work you do, maybe dozens, and maybe even for the rest of your careers. So take advantage of this as a great opportunity to get to know people who, like yourselves, are committed to this fabulous type of professional work. So with that, I'd like to close then with the way I close the orientation. So I'm a little bit back to the risk of role-playing. But I hope this closing also relates to you as a person, as well as an employee, as well as an employer. At the University of Washington, we happen to be surrounded by a lot of water. It makes for a very beautiful campus. It also is an invitation for a lot of geese to visit our campus. And so we find this particular reminder of research findings from Geese pertinent, but it's probably pertinent in all of our lives because we work in teams. We work teams of two. We're always working, and teams are formed, normed, stormed, if you will, daily in our work environments. So here is the wisdom from the geese. As each goose flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the birds following. By flying in a V formation, the whole flock adds 71% more flying range than if each bird flew alone. Isn't that fascinating? Lesson. People who share a common direction and a sense of community can get where they are going quicker and easier because they are traveling on the thrust of one another. You are a community. 2, whenever a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of trying to fly alone and quickly gets back into formation to take advantage of the lifting power of the birds immediately in front. And our lesson, if we have as much sense as a goose, we will join formation with those who are headed where we want to go. 3, when a lead goose gets tired, people do, we do, it rotates back into formation and another goose flies at the point position. See, Walt really is my boss. We just take turns. Lesson, it pays to take turns doing the hard tasks and sharing leadership. With people, as with geese, interdependence on one another is key. 4, the geese in formation honk from behind to encourage those up front to keep up their speed. Now, this is a really important lesson. We need to make sure our honking from behind is encouraging, not something less helpful. And 5, when a goose gets sick, wounded, or shot, 2 geese drop out of formation and follow their fellow member to help and provide protection. They stay with this member of the flock until he or she either is able to fly again or dies. Then they launch out on their own with another formation or to catch up with their own flock. And the lesson, if we have as much sense as the geese, we'll stand by one another like they do. Final words from me. Some of you are repeat attenders. In fact, would you raise your hand if you were here last year? Impressive. How many are new this year? Look at that. How many conferences do you know that grow almost 4 times their size in a single year? I have a feeling you have found a sweet spot of camaraderie and need with one another. I leave you with an obvious recommendation. As soon as you receive the call to hold a date for the Drive conference next year, sign up. I predict this conference is going to, it's just beginning. It's, getting to that tipping point. So contribute everything you can. Have a great conference. Come work at the University of Washington when you can. And thank you very much.